It's the David Trigg Show, Goso for the whole family. Well, look at everybody, and welcome to David Trigg Show, Goso TV on this beautiful Sunday. Man, I love Sundays. I don't know about you, but Sunday is the best day of my life. Leave me a 1 below if Sunday is the best day of your week. Leave me a 2 if it's not the best day of your week, because tomorrow is Monday. But like for me and for you, when we love what we do, Mondays is just as good as Sundays, right? Can you say, I got my Goso bell right here. By the way, I got my Goso mug. Hello, Goso head. Let's see. Oh, I love that Goso mug. I got my Goso hat. I'm telling you, I'm ready with my Goso hat. Got my Goso mug back there. And here in Gosolandia, welcome to Goso TV. Goso, by the way, means joy in Espanol. And I take that from Psalm 30, verse 6, where it says that though there's pain in the night, Goso comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning. And it's basically just my experience. Even though I'm a very happy man and I grew up in a very happy family, when I was a young boy, I went through a lot of trauma, separated from my parents. But because and through the grace of God and counseling, even though I dealt with high levels of anxiety and panic attacks, can you say panic attacks? I have found my joy once again, and God has indeed restored to me the gozo of my salvation. And so today, I'm here and I coach people, especially I work with two groups that I believe are my favorite groups. First of all is with couples, and especially the women that are usually, as you know, the ones who want to do something about their marriages, right? And so you might be a single mom, you might be a woman who's married, you might be divorced, you might be just in a dating relationship, a young mom, and you want to have more to your life, right? You want to experience the fullness of what you were created to do in this world. And so I love helping moms, women that are married, that are wanting to really establish a firm foundation for their marriage, for their families, and for future generations. And then second, I love to work with millennials, with young adults, with post-millennials, Generation Z. And these are young people maybe between 16 and 28, 29, maybe 30, that are trying to make sense of life. I relate to them so much. I learn a ton from them. And so many young people these days, they reach out to me when it comes to relationships, when it comes to finances, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to a lot of it is life in general. Kind of how do I make sense of all of these things that I am wanting to do in my life, honor God at the same time, and yet social media or money or work or guys, I don't know how to make it all happen. I want to honor God, but I'm not sure exactly which way to go. And so my wife and I have the joy of having been married happily, gozosos, for 23 years in about, 6 weeks or so. In just, August 19th, so just about 4 or 5 weeks. We can't wait 23 years. And then together we have 3 successful and very beautiful teens whose rooms are still a mess, so they're not perfect or anything. But by the grace of God, we have a firm foundation that is based on God, that is based on honesty, that is based on tools that we have developed and learned over the years. And we want to offer you these services. My heart really is to help you. I love helping people. I love speaking the Word of God on Sunday mornings and on Wednesday nights and in my church. And then my side business is to be able to counsel. And I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I am a coach, a marriage or relationship coach, as I said, to married couples, single moms, to women in general who are praying for their husband, who want a more strong, firm foundation, as well as millennials in many different areas. And then maybe the third area that I also have a real heart for is for entrepreneurs, creatives, for those who want to create something beautiful in this world, who don't want to just go to the 9 to 5, who aren't satisfied just doing the same old, same old. Can you say, you know what I'm talking about, right? And you want to use these online tools such as podcasting, live streaming. Maybe you're an author, or you're a person who's on Instagram developing your fitness, nutrition account, and you need some advice in terms of social media, network marketing, and all of the different tools that both my daughter Canela and I have been practicing, and we've been learning. Both we've had success as well as failures, and we want to share that with you. So in those three areas, if you would like to be a part of any of our services, the different icon here, or the graphic I mean, is on the screen. You can check those out. You can simply go to two websites, findingdavidtree.com/coaching for anything dealing with young adults, and with anything dealing with entrepreneurship or with life coaching. And then if you want more relationship, marriage counseling, marriage coaching, marriage advice, then you can go to davidtree.com, which is up here, /find love, davidtree.com/find love. Very, very affordable prices. You can either do a monthly service, or you can do a whole year, or you can do one-on-one coaching. There are many things to choose from. But anyway, that's enough of that. So I wanted to actually tell you, or talk to you, about something very awesome that I think is very important for all of us. And that is, how do you have a marriage that lasts? What are some of the tips and some of the tools that I have learned along our journey, my wife and I, and to develop a relationship that is based on God, that isn't always arguing? I'm not saying that we don't argue, but I'm talking about the escalating that happens in a lot of couples. How do we diffuse those trouble spots? And a lot of this comes from, as I said, our own life. We have been to counseling. We have learned a ton from our parents. Both of our parents have been married 50 plus years. So we come from families that have been an example to us, that we admire. And we just consider that a blessing from God. We know that not everyone has that. And by the grace of God, we can relate to people that have a desire for a very strong marriage. As I said, we've also been to counseling. We've had difficult times in our marriage, especially when we had 3 children all within the first, 7 years. And so when we were in our early 20s, can you say thank you, God, for our parents? They helped us. But when you have a lot of little people, and if you remember those days, if you're older like me, you remember those days, right? Or maybe you are a young mom now. You know what it's like to have young people. I'm talking about 3 or maybe 5, 3 and 1. Oof, that's a lot of diapers, right? That's a ton of trips to Costco to get all the stuff that you need, right? Maybe now your kids are older. Maybe they're 13, 11, 9. Maybe you have one child. Maybe you have, as it happens often, you have different relationships and different kids, right? Maybe one is 31 or 22, and then you have maybe a 2-year-old or a 5-month-old baby. So all of those different things, we don't have experience in those exact situations, but a lot of the principles that we teach, that I teach, are common, and they can be applied to anyone as long as they really want to make their relationship work. And I guess one last thing before I get into the tips, my real desire and my commitment, and I guess my real truth that both Rochelle and I, my wife Rochelle and I, practice, is that we believe that we are meant to succeed as a couple. We really believe that all the things that are in front of us in life, whether it's our careers or fitness or food, nutrition, or having, even taking a vacation, are things that are possible. But these days, it's very difficult to do those things by yourself. Even if you have the support, let's say in the Latino culture, which is very prevalent, of your mom or your sisters, It's difficult to get ahead on your own. We all need the support of someone else. Can you say yes to that, right? Leave me a 1 below if you agree with me, right? You want to have and you need the support of others. And so where I'm going with that is we need to, in many ways, recapture the church family, the nuclear family, the fact that a marriage is not just convenience. It's not even, this may sound a little bit controversial, it's not just something before God. It is primarily, so hear me on this. What I mean to say is that in the Bible, it talks about how if you want to get far in life, you have to be yoked, is the word that the apostle uses, with someone of like-mindedness. And he even compares it to a business deal. If you read that context there, I think it's 1 Corinthians 6 and 7. He's talking about in business, if you want to succeed in business, you want to partner with someone that you trust. And he calls it being equally yoked, which is a agricultural term in those days. People saw that. Now we don't use that a lot. We don't see that. But it would be like saying you want to get in bed with the right person, right? If you're going to do something great with your life, you don't want to just go and get in bed, both metaphorically and in real life, with someone that you don't see a future with. Now, if you have had maybe some difficulties in life, you are a single mom, you have been through some ups and downs, or maybe you have a solid marriage that may look great on the outside, but on the inside, you wonder, can we do more? Then these tips are for you. So I wanted to give you 3 tips that will help you really move ahead. And if you want more of my coaching, then I encourage you to check out my websites so we can talk further. But the number 1 tip that I want to give you to have a successful marriage without all of the arguing and all the conflict is really to get clear on what you want. To get clear on what you want. One of the unfortunate things about, let's say, religion, and as you know, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, we love Jesus. I know most of you that watch me here also love God. But one of the I guess the dangers of religion, relationship, church, whatever you want to call it, is that it can reduce our spiritual life to just prayer and doing good things and avoiding sin. That really is what they call a reductionist view of our faith. I always go back to Jesus himself when he says that he came to give us life. And most people think, well, spiritually, well, but then he says in life abundantly. Why would he say life abundantly if he's just talking about streets of gold? He's talking about an abundant life here on earth. And this is where a lot of people criticize me. They say, well, we as Christians shouldn't want success in this world. That's for the heathens. That's for the world. We're supposed to be poor, broke, and worried. People may not say that, but that's almost the assumption that a lot of Christians have. I am of the opinion, and this is what my parents and my wife's parents, what we practice, what our kids hopefully will practice, is that God's kingdom, and I preached about this morning, is not only for the afterlife, but is for the here and now. And his kingdom here on earth deals with 2 things. First and foremost, with serving the poor, with being other-centered, with helping the least of these. And second, to have an abundant life of gozo, of joy. Remember that Jesus always would talk about that the way that the world, meaning those outside of the kingdom of God, will know who we are or will recognize us will be by our love. And when we love each other, when we work together in a marriage, in a business, in any relationship, great things will happen. Abundant things will happen. And I'm not talking about material things alone. I'm talking about an abundant marriage. I would say that Rochelle and I, in almost 25 years, 23 years here next month, of marriage and 25 of relationship, we met 2 years prior. We were like 21 and 19, 22 and 20. We were babies. When we met, and I was playing my guitar and she was out in the audience, and we began to do the little butterfly ice. What do they call that? Ojitos, we call it in Spanish. We had no idea that we would be where we are. I mean, we, by the grace of God and by knocking on Jesus, I don't knock on wood, I knock on Jesus and his word, we will, by the grace of God, continue to have a life of gozo for the next 50 years, as long as we're on this earth. And even before that, if we know each other in heaven, who knows exactly, right? But the way that we have gotten here is by being clear on what we want. Since day one, I have been honest with myself, first of all, and of course with Rochelle when we were kids, about what I wanted. You know what our first date was? No, it wasn't to Circuit City or to the Apple Store. Maybe that should have been our first date. But our first date was actually to an elementary school where we went to see a kid's performance that we didn't know anybody at that kid's performance. How crazy was I, right? I'm still crazy. You think I'm crazy now. I took my dear wife, just this beautiful 21-year-old at the time, to go see a kid's play at an elementary school here in the urban part of town, here in Long Beach. Because I grew up near that school, just 2 blocks away. I went to another school, if you know the area. I went to Willard Elementary. Shout out to the Willard. I forget what we're called. But that was Burbank Elementary. And so I lived closer to Burbank. Blah, long story short, we still laugh at that first date. But my point is, my value was very clear. Is that I love not only my city, but we both had a heart to serve. And guess what my dear wife studied in college? I think she was wrapping up school when I met her. So she studied anthropology, which is the study of races and cultures. So you see how even from those early years, we had one common desire. Now, when people say, well, I just want to honor God, I want to serve everyone. Well, I hope you do. Everyone does. But what specifically do you want? What specifically do you want? Do you want to travel the world? I don't mean like everyone says, but I mean like maybe you want to actually. I have a friend whose main career, she's single, but she was married and now divorced. And I think one of the major problems, she was one of my people that I coach, was that she wasn't honest with her husband about what she wanted. You know what she wants? She wants to travel and do a food blog or to do Insta food, to just basically talk about her food experience and to just travel every weekend, go places, not only local, but worldwide. Well, her husband was more of a hermit. Guess what? It didn't work out. Be very specific. It's not selfish to be specific. God has put those desires in you. You want to be a career woman and not raise 10 kids or even one? Well, then why not tell your future husband or your current husband, maybe if you're already in a relationship, why not be specific? It's not just being honest. It's being specific about what you want. When you're specific about what you want, the other person begins to shape or maybe to center their lives around yours. They begin to look for ways to come together, to fuse our lives together. It's not selfish to say, I want to stay home and not work. You're the wife, maybe you're the man. I know it gets complicated with finances. I understand. But expressing your wants isn't a line in the sand that, okay, if this doesn't happen by a year from now, I'm out. No, it's expressing a vision for your life. I don't like the word vision because it sounds so business and so higher than, holier than thou. I just talk about, what do you want? Everyone wants something. And even if your wants are very mundane, you might like shoes. I want technology. I love music. Why would I hide that from my wife? Even if we were 5 years in, 10 years in, or like we are almost 25 years in. It only creates more conflict the more you hide your real wants from each other. Express what you want. Say something like, I would like to go out to eat every weekend and not make dinner 5 nights a week. You know how many people struggle with talking about their food or their eating habits? I mean, sexuality, food, finances, right? Those are the 3 things. Of course, kids, but mostly it starts with those first 3 things. Sexuality, and that's not just the actual encounter. It's everything that goes around intimacy, trust, right? You're not going to have sexual relations with someone you don't trust. Then finances. It's not just about how much money do you have, but it's about working together. How do you deal with debt? If you're bringing in debt, if you're still, it says that most Americans have $30,000 in debt. We used to have $10,000 debt. We had $30,000 in debt when I was unemployed about 10 years ago. We had to have a plan to get out of that hole, and now we're at a better place. The area of finances, and then the third area of whether it's family, children, whatever you want to call it, but that's more now dealing with how are we going to do this together? How are we going to raise hear me on this. I don't start with how are we going to raise our kids together. I start with how are we going to have a successful marriage in light of our growing family. Where couples go bad, or meaning they go off the rails, is where they focus on the kids. I think that's just social, maybe like a social trap, or just vernacular or talk that maybe people just have all the time, like focus on the kids, or we're going to stay in this marriage because of the kids. That really makes no sense at any level. It only makes sense in the news or on TMZ or in the gossip column at the supermarket, in line at Ralph's. In real life, for your marriage to have that unity and that common goal, you have to put your relationship first in light of your changing circumstances. Because the worst thing that you can do as a couple is to assume that your relationship, your trust, will not be tested by the different challenges of life. So number 1 is, what do you want? Number 2 is, how are you going to, this is very practical, how are you going to, and I just mentioned this, adapt through the seasons of life? So, for example, one of the common things that happens, and it happened to us, when you have children, is that first, the male has this love affair with that young life, right? I mean, that feeling that the father has, and I'm going to talk just about the guys here for a second, is like no other. I mean, we didn't give birth to this baby, but there's something beautiful that happens to the men as well as the women. Of course, the mothers, right, feel that. What happens, though, soon for the male is that he realizes that having a child is a ton of what? Hard work. And guess what the male would rather work at? His job. And so maybe for the first one, again, our situation is not traditional anymore, or not common, meaning that we had our 3 kids basically 2 years apart. I mean, now you have many, many different circumstances. So know that you're going to have to just adapt and apply the things I'm saying to your situation. because not everyone, as I said, has a 8, 6, and 4-year-old, or even just whatever, right? So adapt it to your situation. But what I'm getting at is you have to adapt to the seasons of life. So back to the male, he wants to go to work. Well, guess what the wife wants to do? She also wants to be like a regular human being, but she's running out of hands. And this goes now to what they call division of labor. I don't mean birth laboring. I mean all the different duties in the house. Taking out the trash, going grocery shopping, cooking and cleaning, back to cooking, sexuality. I mean, don't be surprised to know that having children is the worst thing for your sexual intimacy. When we went through counseling, we had this book that had this chart on a healthy relationship and then an unhealthy relationship. I think like 25 or 30 years of marriage. It's ironic now, 25 years in, thinking back on that chart of how accurate it was, because we've been through that. On a healthy relationship, it goes like this: good times, bad times. Good times, bad times. It's just like up and down, up and down. That's not a healthy relationship, because one of those downs is going to be the last one. And maybe it's divorce, maybe it's an affair, maybe the woman has a mental breakdown. A healthy relationship is actually, it's not like this. It's not like this perfect, just up and away. It actually goes like this. It goes up, and then it has these, like when there's an earthquake, you've seen that on TV, like this break. It's like a needle that's scratching the paper or something, and then it keeps going, and then there's another kind of fault, meaning an earthquake, and then it keeps going. And guess when those two earthquakes tend to happen? Yep, after the second or third child. It could be after the first. And then at teenage, when those kids become teenagers. Guess what we just did yesterday? We just graduated, let's just call it, our last teenager, basically into near adulthood. Our beautiful boy, David, just turned 15 yesterday. And our daughters are 17 and 19. And obviously they're still teenagers, but you know what I mean, right? Once that male especially turns 15, 16, things, man, begin to move rapidly. And so, but we know and we can testify that that second rupture or fault or shaking of the earth definitely happened at both of those times. And so, and we cope with that. We learned, we were shocked. We were like, oh my goodness, what's going on? I mean, we went through the whole gamut of emotions, and we didn't succeed every day or even every year. But that's not the point. The point is not to have this. The point is you're going to do this. But what couples that don't make it, they crash. Because again, back to the up and down. Let's have another kid, down again. Let's go on vacation, down again. Let's maybe move to another city. Maybe I'm going to lose weight and be the woman you've always wanted me to be. Okay, I'll just let him do whatever he wants. That up and down is what an unhealthy marriage looks like. So, the seasons of life. Number 3, and this is common, but it's maybe, as they say, common knowledge is not always common, or common wisdom isn't always common. And that is to come together around worship. Come together around a common spiritual goal of worship. And the reason why I phrase it as that is because when you talk about God or church or faith, I just believe that these days, you might as well be talking about politics. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is in a fight over what it really means to go to church. I don't like that church, or that's just for the woman, or I'll go with the kids, or I mean, traditionally, especially, I don't know, the last 50 years, you don't see a lot of males in church. You see mostly the women. I mean, I think it's very easy to know why. The women have a more spiritual sense to them. They have like this sixth sense that longs for God, because God is love. So really they long for love. The male longs to succeed, to achieve, to conquer, to get things done. Church doesn't do any of those things. Unless the males are involved in some sort of cleaning project or missions project, accomplishing things, or in leadership. And these are obviously stereotypes per se. I mean, there are many women who accomplish, and there are many men who want to love. But you know what I mean, right? So the third tip is you have to come together around a similar longing for worship. Worship means giving worth to another. So when you think about your relationship with God as worship, it really challenges everything. It's no longer about getting up at 8 a.m. to drive an hour to go hear some boring sermon and then come home and miss the game, right? It's not about that. It's about you coming together to be in awe of this being that, for us followers of Jesus, became flesh, walked among us, left his spirit to console us, to comfort us, and to guide us, and to challenge us until his return, so we can continue to live with him forever. I mean, what a deal, right? You want to come together around a common spiritual goal. I really believe we have to be goal-driven when it comes to love. There's a mystery to it that will never be understood. You can't try to just make sense of your wife or your husband. You will be disappointed over and over again. It's not a logical, this is not an Excel file that we're building here. We're building trust. It's a mystery. It's blind. That's why they call it blind love, right? But you want to also, I would say more than anything, apart from the mystery, you want to also be goal-driven. I really believe in that. Maybe it's my personality. Both Rochelle and I, we have very similar personalities. We've taken all these tests, from the MBTI to the Enneagram to there's this other one that we took when we first got married. As I said, counseling has helped. We actually went to counseling before we got married, as well as about 10 years in. Very, very important seasons of our lives. And so we know kind of how we work. Under stress, what we do. When we're happy, what we do. What our vices are. Guess what my vice is? Yep, all this stuff. And then also our virtues. And when our virtues come together, when I see my lovely wife being a leader at her school, she's a vice principal, soon to be a principal. There's nothing more sexy, attractive, beautiful, just wakes me up like nothing in this world, because I love a woman who achieves. I've always loved that. And when I see my lovely wife, I see two things: gorgeousness, which is important to me, and achievement, someone who's an achiever. And then, of course, you get all this kindness on top of that, and hospitality and intelligence, and an amazing mom that teaches our kids. I mean, and she loves my family. Anyway, I won't bore you. But that's what builds an amazing... Hello, Julie. Welcome, welcome. Nice to have you here. I'm going to put your comment here on the screen. Hello, it is Arcelio. Hello, my friend from my childhood. So talking about kind of what creates a positive, powerful marriage that doesn't have the conflict, the yelling, the screaming, or the addictions that often come as a result of all the missing or the conflict that happens. There are many ways that people cope with pain. And so to summarize a little bit of what I've been saying, 3 tips that have been true of us, and as I said, through our years of unity, through resources, through our own education, through therapy, and all the rest that my wife and I have been through. We have a marriage that is real, that is filled with joy and with purpose. And so the 3 tips to accomplish that, to accomplish the kind of joy that we've experienced, and I believe God wants for all of us. First, I talked about the need to know what you want. Second is the priority of having similar kind of a division of labor, or to know exactly, actually I guess I called it the seasons of life, right? To know how to handle the seasons of life. And then third, and maybe more importantly, is to have a spiritual goal that is the same, a common spiritual goal of worship, where you're actually worshiping God wherever you are, at home, at church, in the car, whatever, together, as Romans 12 says, that we now are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And of course, I want you to come to church. Come to my church. It's an awesome place. Great preaching. Now, you might be someone who's on the other side. You're not looking to get married. You're already married. Maybe you've been through some challenges. So do these things apply? Of course they apply. These are not just tips for the 20-year-olds that are engaged or dating. These are for us right now in our 30s and 40s, wherever you may be. These 3 things, I believe, are the foundation to a marriage of joy, of gozo, that lasts, that endures a test of time. That, like Matthew, I think it's Matthew 6 and 7 say, that when the storms come, that house is built upon a rock, can stand all of the storms that come our way. That's what we all want, right? Is to be able to endure. And to more than that, as I said at the beginning, to have a joyous life. I don't want to just simply have a marriage that is convenient, that pays the bills, that is some sort of like a companion. I mean, obviously, those are all beautiful things. Of course I want companionship. Of course I want to make ends meet. Yes, it's easier when you're married and you have someone else. But the real point here is to fulfill something great in this world. Is to have a partner that is with you as you fulfill your calling upon this earth, whatever that may be. You may want to have, exactly, to endure the storms of life, right? And that's why, exactly, Julie, to endure, and then beyond enduring is to actually, I would say, to then thrive. So maybe the first part is you endure, because, when you're enduring, you have to tuck your head and you have to let the storm pass, right? You have to come together. But then what happens when the storm is gone? What happens on a beautiful sunny day? You're like, woohoo! Let's go to the beach. Let's get the kids in the car. Let's go to the movies. Let's go and enjoy life, right? That's the second stage, is to thrive. We want to thrive as humans. We're created to have gozo, to have joy in life. That's why Jesus says, in the Psalms, the psalmist says that I'm here. It's exactly gozo. Gozo. We're meant to have a life that thrives. Though there's pain in the night, that's the enduring, right? Joy comes in the morning. That's the thriving. Don't you want to thrive as a woman, as a man, as a couple? Don't you want to thrive as a human being? When you look at your goals and your career, maybe you want to start a business, you want to have your kids become amazing individuals, you want to paint your house, you want to lose weight so that you can feel great. I mean, all of these things is what thriving is all about. Enduring is the first stage, though. You can't thrive unless you're first enduring the storms of life. And before that, before you endure, you build a foundation. So first you want to start with that firm foundation. That's why I gave you those 3 tips. Second, you want to then endure the tests of times. And that's why my second point there was You have to go through the seasons of life together. Now, what happens if you've been through a breakup or divorce, a bankruptcy, an affair, or maybe you're in a marriage that just isn't thriving? Well, you go back to the firm foundation. You go back to the basics of a foundation like what I mentioned. What do you want? Endure the seasons and worship together. That's the foundation that you need. Most of all, of course, the foundation of Christ. And more than faith, more than knowledge, more than church, I mean, our faith is a love affair. Our faith is a feeling as well as a reality. When you talk to your husband, right, or to your mom or parents or friends about going to church, what is it you're really getting at? You're really getting at you want their hearts to be connected to the source of love. So that from that connection, first they can feel exactly. They can feel connected. And then it overflows, right, Julie? When you worship together, I mean, Psalm 23 says, my cup overfloweth. Surely goodness and grace will be with me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I mean, David had it right. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. When you, by yourself even at first, make worship a priority, and I'm talking about all that worship means: faith, love, connection, hearing the word of God, letting it bathe you, letting it change you, letting it just wash over you. Not every message is going to hit you unless you come to my church. But maybe it's a word of a song. I mean, sometimes when I'm singing, I can't even sing. You don't have to be a musician to feel the presence of God. You don't have to be a opera singer or a skilled bass player or piano player to experience love. It's a beautiful thing to be a human. It's the most painful thing, but it's the most beautiful thing because we can experience love. I mean, we have our beautiful dog, Daisy the dog, and I can tell she experiences love, right? Her tail, when she eats, man, that's love. When she's in the back, running around, beating up on the dogs next door, that's maybe no-go, so right? I mean, and that's a beautiful animal. How much more you and me who are created in the very image of God, who have God breath, the Ruah, he calls it in Genesis 1. He breathed his spirit in you. That's why you long for heaven. That's why we long for eternity. That's why we long for God. Because you're created. You have the same DNA as God, divine energy. God isn't a crystal. God isn't a Buddha. God isn't a Muhammad, a prophet. God became incarnate, became man. He became Christ. If only we could look at life. That's right. The simplicity, right, Julie? That love. And all of that is possible. All of that is possible because they're all signs to what we want. We love our pets, not to get too much into pets. I love my dog. But I believe that they are signs to love. They're guides to love. I get concerned when people love their dogs more than their husbands, or than their wives, or they love their cars more than their wives. Concern is not the right word. Something isn't right. We're not supposed to replace God with our pets, anything, much less our wives or friends or family. All of these things point to Christ, point to love. Jesus is what? God is love. And it says that love, in the New Testament, it says that love casts out all fear. Are you afraid that your husband is with someone else? It's because there's no love. Are you afraid that you're losing your marriage? It's because love is lacking. So what do? Well, you go back to love. And that's why you need to go back to the source of love. TMZ is not the source of love. Money is not. A job not. Sleeping in, Netflix, YouTube, being in politics, hating on people, getting on Facebook and just saying a bunch of nasty stuff, hating your parents, complaining about your sister. Oh my goodness. What's good about what's happening in our world is that it's so silly to think that the world has the answer to our problems or that it has the solution to our need for intimacy. I mean, how many women can you sleep with? How many dresses can you buy? How much work can you do? How many hours of work can you do to feel intimacy? Oh, the males, I don't need any of that stuff. I just need to work and my money and my beer at night and just sleep. We all need love. That's why you got into this to begin with, right? That's why you dated that. Oh man, when I dated Rochelle, I still have pictures of her that I keep in my wallet. Just because those are those are the early years, right? What was that show? The Wonder Years. Remember that show? If you're an 80s kid like me, The Wonder Years. We have to have that beautiful beginning in marriage, in relationships. If you're dating, if you're like, I'm never getting married again, or like, I'm in this horrible marriage, stop calling it that. Start with the foundation, the 3 tips that I gave you. And now, how do you implement that? Well, that's what my coaching plan is about. You know, YouTube videos, and even as amazing as this show is, really can't get in there to your life, right? This is a one-way, one-man show here. That's why the coaching is so important. That's why I have there my different programs, davidtree.com/findlove, as well as the coaching program and all the stuff that you see here. Because that relationship is important. That conversation with another human being is huge. And more than anything, the listening for you to express or to have someone help you express. The males usually, this is not always the case, but most of the times the males have a hard time expressing their longings because what they feel on the surface and what kind of fills their minds a lot of times is anger. And so they'll express anger. And because in therapy, you're not supposed to yell. When you're talking to a spiritual leader, you're not supposed to yell. You basically don't have anything to say. And so that's why most males don't want to go and see a therapist, because there's nothing to accomplish. And they can't express their real emotions, which is mostly anger. And so you want to begin by understanding some of those things and talking to somebody and getting on a journey with God and with that third person. You, maybe at first it's just you, God, and that spiritual leader. In my case, a coach. Or it could be a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I am a life coach. I'm a pastor, of course. So, and a man who hopefully you're learning from and you can pick up a few things from. But it might just be you and God. I would say that you and God really is ultimately where you want to end up. And these tips and tools and YouTube videos, whatever, books and stuff, all that is good. But eventually you want to have someone know you, have someone that can guide you. And so that's why I offer these different services. But I hope that most of all that you will feel the love of God. I love you because I have Jesus in my heart and because I care about your relationship. Second, because I have the life and the ups and downs of our own story. And no, we haven't been through a divorce and we don't have kids out of wedlock and an affair and bankruptcy. So we don't need to know all that stuff. But we've been through 25 years of life together, the same 2 people. That teaches you a lot. And so from that, and plus, of course, our education and our desire to help you most of all is really, I think, what can benefit anyone. So I'm really excited about this new adventure. I haven't always known how to help couples or kind of like to learn exactly what to say or what to do 25 years ago. That's right, Julie. And, but I've realized more and more that to share our own story is really what's the most important thing. To share our story and then to listen and guide, listen, guide, be patient, and to simply be available to people. That's the best thing. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up this amazing show. Let's see here. All right, there's the music that I love. Thanks so much for being here. I will see you next time. Miss some of today's show? Get it on demand at davidtrigg.com. And make sure to tune in to Gozo TV weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on Gozo TV and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Instagram. Gozo for the whole family.